Hey guys, I'm Meredith Baker reporting for On the Map, Off the Radar. Last week, La Tuta, who is Mexico's most wanted man, was apprehended by Mexican authorities. He was leader of one of Mexico's most violent drug cartels. So we thought it would be a good opportunity to talk with Mexican grad student Alejandro Espinosa about the war on drugs in Mexico. So first of all, thank you for being here.
Hi, hello, thank you.
And I wanted to start with a broader question. So do you think violence is a generalized problem in Mexico?
Well, since Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto took office in December 2012, around 35,000 Mexicans have been killed in the last 25 months. Between 50 and 60% of these assassinations are related to drug traffic violence. So right now the death rate in Mexico per 100,000 inhabitants is around 24, between 20 and 24, which is high for developed economies. However, these numbers I think should be put into a context. There are some regions in Mexico that face level of violence compared to Sweden or Denmark or Canada, sorry, that are like less than 5, less than 2, and there are others that are higher, like 24, 25. So even though in Mexico now, and I would recognize we have a really problems of violence, I wouldn't say we have endemic problems that, for example, like Colombia in the 80s, which was higher than 80, or close to Honduras, which right now is has the highest level of homicides of around 90 per 100,000.
Wow, those are
large
staggering
numbers.
statistics.
Yes.
Well then, in terms of the problem that Mexico has been having with these drug cartels, how do you think it has affected the democracy of the country?
Well, last summer there was the disappearance of 43 students by the police, which are related also to drug traffic gangs. So the problem right now in Mexico is that because of the level of corruption and because the violence has increased so much, and the government, as compared into other countries, doesn't have the capacity to sustain all the violent groups across the entirety of the country, which because Mexico is a large country in terms of geographic levels and population. They are fighting and they are corrupting different levels of the government, especially at the municipal level. So they are corrupting some presidentes municipales, which are the mayors of Mexico. Yeah. So those are, I think that's right now the main problem of democracy with violence.
And on that note, how do you think the federal government is coping with the war on drugs? What is the general temperature? Do people think the federal government is doing a good job in trying to contain this problem? And what are they doing on the local levels?
Yeah, the civil society right now in Mexico is criticizing the federal government of doing not enough. However, I think even though this might be true, the federal government is taking some steps towards fighting the violence. One of these is by fighting the violent groups directly, for example, the arrest of the La Tuta, and the Senate just passed some legislation to fight corruption, which is, I think, is an endemic problem in Mexico. And there are also some problems of transparency laws and of unifying and improving the capacity and transparency of police forces, especially at the municipal and state level in Mexico. So I think although the steps might be not as big as some other parts might wish, I think the Mexican government is taking some steps to fighting and preventing that violence increase in Mexico.
So you think it's going in the right direction?
I think it's going in the right direction, but there's of course level for improvement.
And you mentioned Colombia and Honduras
Yes.
earlier. So do you think this war on drugs then is a unique problem to Mexico, or do you think there are some parallels that can be drawn with other countries?
Well, I think Colombia is always a case of comparison in Mexico, especially because this is drug-related violence. However, I think there are two differences with the case of Colombia and the case of Mexico. The first one is that in Colombia, the groups that emerged in the 70s, 60s, possibly the FARC, which is the most famous, they have a different type of ideology. So they emerged because, for example, as fighting corruption inside federal elections, and because they were angry that some candidates were imposing, or the political parties were imposing some people to the presidency. And also they have some communist ideology, which is in in the case of the Mexican groups, at least in the 80s and 90s, this is absent. So there is a social background in the Colombian movements, particularly the FARC and M19 and other types of movements, which is absent in Mexico. And I think the second one is that the international sector. So particularly in the case of Colombia, the U.S. started putting a lot of money to fight the drug violence in Colombia and the production of drugs, the Plan Colombia. In Mexico, this is different. First of all, because Mexico is next to the United States, so most of the although we receive some transfers of money to from the U.S. to fight the corruption and violence in Mexico, most of the efforts from the U.S. they are taken by the Homeland Security as a measure of homeland issues, because we are next to them, so there is no need to them to support in the same degree as they fight in Colombia, for example.
Right. And then, kind of as a final question, do you think that there are aspects of the war on drugs that have been portrayed inaccurately in the mainstream media, or over or underemphasized?
Yes, I think that the coverage of the mainstream media, particularly in English, has been quite negative, which I understand, because there has been a lot of killings in Mexico, disappearance of students that can be related to human rights violations, but at the same time they have not covered some of the decreasing in the level of violence since 2011, for example. They have not reported this.
So they haven't reported necessarily the progress that's been made.
Yes, and the changes in regulations that I would like to see them more. They have been covered in international media in Spain to some degree, but not, for example, the BBC, New York Times, Washington Post.
Right, and I think it's equally important to focus on the good and the progress as it is to report on the bad.
Yes, of course, always to keep a level and to inform the population, because if not, everything that's going to jump is going to be negative news.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this was so informative. Thank you so much for taking time
much.
to speak with us on the Map Off the Radar. And if you guys want to read about this further, Alejandro is going to give us some links that we'll put at the bottom of the video for more reading. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.